lowered his price again. And his machine was still half the price of the Atari, and Atari had been dropping its price and was losing money on every unit it sold. But they said, you know, we'll get the Hong Kong line up, and then we'll be making money again. Well, the Hong Kong line didn't come up quickly enough to make Christmas. So in Christmas of 1983, when people really started buying computers for their kids, they couldn't buy Ataris. Commodore made a ton of money. Well, actually, it didn't. There's a postscript to this story. But it just drove Atari right out of business. And see, Atari and all the video game developers knew that the 2600, the home games machine, was obsolete, and everything would be making the jump to personal computers. And so we were in the middle of that jump when the Commodore 64 came out. And so both ends, this one was obsolete and dying. This end was destroyed by Jack Tramiel. And people were trying to pile onto the Commodore 64, but that had its own problems. And as a result, the entire video games industry died. I mean, everybody lost their job. Along with it, the home computer industry died. Radio Shack, Texas Instruments, Atari. Apple did just fine through that period because Apple had always positioned itself as a business machine, even though they had a lot of home users. And so the scale of the devastation is hard to describe. Atari went from 11,000 employees to 1,000 in about 14 months. And there were so many people in Silicon Valley who were laid off, nobody could get a job. The job market was glutted. One of my friends, I mean, the situation was so bleak, it was so hopeless. One of my friends committed suicide. Two other friends both died of odd diseases that were almost certainly, I believe, caused by the stress. It was a truly devastating time, and very few people stuck through it. I was working on Balance of Power at the time, I was laid off, and a little later, a year later, I was working on Balance of Power, and the situation was still so bad that my wife said, "Chris, give up on this game stuff, go out and get a real job." And I said no, and we ended up making about $400,000 in royalties on Balance of Power. Anyway, that thing was a real disaster, and I believe that Jack Tramiel, we could have survived it by making the jump to home computers. Jack Tramiel killed that because, you see, to win the prize, he won the price war, but he did so by ruining his company. They lowered the price so much that they were losing money. And in January of 1984, Commodore fired him. It was his company, but the board of directors threw him out because he had nearly brought the company to bankruptcy by his price war. And he ended up buying Atari, which was sort of whatever. Anyway, 5 years from now, what do you expect to be doing?
Teaching.
Pardon?
Teaching.
Ah, okay. Teaching what?
History.
Okay. History. Ah, interesting. Any particular specialty within that?
Pre-1800s. World history, European.
Oh, okay. Have you read Fernand Braudel, his 3 books?
I have not.
Those are, you really should read those. Wheels of, let's see, Structures of Everyday Life is the first volume. It's about what people ate, drank, wore, lived in, everything. Next is The Wheels of Commerce, which is how mercantile systems developed in Europe. And then finally is The Perspective of the World. It is considered a classic. The books are just great. So. What will you be doing 5 years from now? Oh, okay. Is your goal to make a design company? I mean, specifically, is it your goal, I'm going to do this company, I'm going to get rich, or, you know?
I don't really care if I get rich, I just kind of enjoy doing someone.
Okay.
Make games and other people.
Okay, so you want to have a company so that you can make the games you want to make, but, you know, you got to make money to survive, so. Okay. How about you? What will you be doing in 5 years?
Finishing graduate school.
In what?
Psychology. Probably working with dissertation.
Okay. Okay. I have a suggestion for you. Do comparative brain activity studies. Have you ever heard, there's a term that gamers use, it used to be the zone.
Yes.
Okay,
Zone
yeah,
out.
where you're playing and you just get into it and you're completely unaware of anything else that's going on. That is a very important state of consciousness, very interesting, worthy of research, and I think it would be especially interesting to compare it with the brain activity in people under the influence of various drugs, alcohol, marijuana, you know, hard drugs.
Like correlation study?
Yeah, I believe that you will find some very interesting similarities. And when you do, if you want to get materialistic about it, you could then take your results to, say, Electronic Arts or Sony and say, how much will you give me not to publish these results? You can be rich and, you know. So, anyway, what will you be doing in 5 years?
This is your brain on magic. Do you want this out there?
I don't know. I'm just gonna be at school until I figure that out. Just learn as much as I can.
Well, I mean, the whole point of school is to figure out who you are, and in fact, you'll spend your 20s trying to figure out just who the hell you really are.
Yeah, sure.
And I urge you to be flexible. You will be surprised at what you end up doing. I mean, when I was in school, I was going to be a physics professor. That didn't happen. The reason why is, once I got into upper division physics and I started getting to know the professors personally, I decided I don't want to be like them. So then I was going to be a physics teacher. So I got my master's degree and I went to a community college and I taught physics there for a few years. This was in Columbus, Nebraska, armpit of the universe. And well, then I got a job. It was sort of like teaching physics, only it was a little odder. It was a high school presentation. I was Mr. Energy. You know, the various companies had funded this energy education program. And so I'd drive up to a high school in my van, and we'd unload a ton of equipment into the big high school auditorium. And then they'd bring all the kids into the school, and I'd come riding out on an electric motorcycle and say, "Oh, kids, I'm Mr. Energy!" And then I'd do this show. You gotta have farting jokes for high school kids. And
Yeah!
oh yeah.
No one else wants to cheer for farting jokes? I'm the only one willing to admit I'm immature here?
Count on you, Sam.
High school audiences are the hardest audiences in the world. They will really tear you to shreds if you're bad. And so I got good real quick. And anyway, so I was doing that. Is that teaching? Is that acting? And, you know, what was that? Who knows? And then I got a job at Atari doing game design. You know, so you kind of jump around. My wife started off as a biochemist, a biochemical technician, working in research labs doing the actual work of research. And then she decided she didn't like that. She was working in a place where they were doing cancer cancer research, and